Tonight on CFTK-TV News, Kittibet's ER was closed down yet again. Terrace's mayor went to Kingcombe so that he could return some displaced artifacts, and the Thornhill Fire Department has a new system for their volunteers.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cal Baslett, and here's what's making the news in the Northwest and beyond for today. To begin today, it was discovered that the Kittibet ER was closed down yet again yesterday for a span of 14 hours or so between 5 p.m. yesterday evening to 7 a.m. this morning. This is now the 8th time that the emergency room has been closed down for an overnight span in the past 2 months. The reason that was given for the closure is the same as most other cases where hospitals shut down their emergency rooms: staffing shortages. Now over to an update on the repatriation of talking sticks that once hung on the Terrace City Council chamber walls. Mayor Sean Buitosh headed out on Monday morning for Kingcombe in order to return the displaced artifacts.
Vancouver Island from Prince Rupert. I'm going to drive up the coast a little bit. At Port Hardy, take a water taxi over to Kingcombe Inlet, then take another boat to Kingcombe itself, and then we'll have an event there, and we will hand the talking sticks over to the folks in Kingcombe and get them back to their rightful owners.
The Coast Mountain School Board was recently the recipient of a proposal from the Intertribal Education Committee that involved how many members they have. The proposal in question saw the committee ask the board to up the amount of trustees they have from 7 to 9 as a way to make sure that there is more representation on the board from the nearby First Nations. And the way that representation would be achieved is by mandating that 4 of the 9 trustees have to act as the rep for a specific First Nation. These new Indigenous trustees would supposedly be determined in a vote by each area's respective band members. Currently, representatives from places like Terrace, Kittibet, Thornhill, and Hazelton make up the school board, and it hasn't had many First Nations people on it before. The Thornhill Fire Department has a new paid on-call system for their volunteer firefighters. Over to CFTK's Jaylene Matthews with more of the details.
With a motive of better volunteer retention, the Thornhill Fire Department has recently transitioned to a paid on-call model.
Being able to get compensated for the time that you put back to the community. Our recruitment, we have it open all year round. You can come in and pick up an application in advance. We only take the intakes for certain ones that are starting at a basic level. If you come in with experience, we can definitely get you onto the trucks and responding a lot quicker. But anybody that's coming in with no experience, basic, we're only doing intakes once a year. But that's a discussion we can have when you guys come in grabbing applications.
The department is seeking suitable recruits.
We would like to get about another 20 more if we could. That would be kind of the optimal position for our department. We are making it work right now, but again, we always look at the burnout, the firefighter burnout, the emergency responder burnout. Every department is feeling it all over Canada, but we want to see if we can get those people out there where everybody's fresh and ready to go for the next one.
Volunteers are required to complete firefighter training.
Our training here, we do expect everybody to go through the full Professional Firefighter 1001 program, and that'll teach you right from the basic of putting on your PPE to all the way up to driving the trucks and pumping the trucks. So that is a requirement for us. The physical fitness, it's not too hard. It is demanding. We do push you to a limit, but it's 5 minutes of hard work. It's all we're asking to get through that one. So, but it gives us an understanding kind of where that recruit is standing as well. Are we gonna put them up into a high rise, asking them to climb 11 stories, right? So it kind of helps us put and position firefighters where they need to be. Yeah.
Female volunteers shouldn't be intimidated?
Absolutely not. We got tons of females here now, and honestly, a lot of them are pushing the males out there too, so it's good to see.
For CFTK News, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
As Terrace resident Lana Green is in the middle of a lawsuit with Alberta Health after the death of her son in the Edmonton Remand Center, a former patient has disclosed what it's actually like being a patient in the facility. Damian Smith from CFTK reports and warning there is mention of suicide in this story.
As Terrace resident Lana Green continues to fight for her son's name, TJ McConnell, after his time in the Edmonton Remand Center, former patient Brandon Shaw, who appeared at McConnell's public fatality inquiry in February of this year, went into detail about his time at the facility.
It's scary. Like, it really is. It's a really big cold, really echoey place. Very bright walls, and like throughout that time, you're asking for access to a nurse, they're denying you 100%. I couldn't tell you how many times I asked for mental health supports for a nurse because I needed like methadone, right? Like whether it was Suboxone, right? And like depending on who you got, like you were gonna get shut down no matter what. But depending on who you got, they'd either send out a request or they just wouldn't, right? So you're kind of at like their mercy or beck and call, right?
Brandon does agree that the facility is understaffed with little people and resources available. However, he does believe that the outcome is still not enough.
So when I was in dry cell, right, because I was like severely dope sick, there was a nurse that came and checked up on me twice a day. She came and checked my vitals and made sure I was okay. So if that person is checking up on me twice a day, how can that nurse not do something about what's clearly? I'm begging this woman, please, I need help, crying, literally laying in my own filth. And this woman says, no, I'm sorry. Or no, wait, they usually tell me like, no, I'm sorry, we don't have a doctor on, or it's the weekend, or it's this or that, or they're famous for saying, oh, you'll see a nurse when you get to the unit.
Shaw also noted that he did have suicidal thoughts in the center, but he also had a couple of weeks left. However, the same cannot be said for McConnell and Jonathan Anderson, who committed suicide in March of 2020.
For people like me and TJ and the countless other people, not to mention like how many other people have taken their lives in that place, being denied help. So it's yes, maybe they don't have enough people, but I think they just don't give enough about it.
Shaw's also spent time at remand centers in British Columbia, but disclosed that patients are treated, quote, more like people, where he was able to access avenues for support. From Terrace, I'm Damian Smith.
Coming up next, we get to look into the platforms of the major BC political parties. Welcome back. The BC Greens were the first to drop their full election platform, and they had a heavy focus on taxing the wealthy in order to support wellness. CTV's Rob Buffum now with more.
Flanked by candidates, BC Greens leader Sonia Furstenau unveiled her party's platform. Its centerpiece, a focus on the well-being of British Columbians, a framework implemented in New Zealand and one that would measure outcomes like poverty and health of British Columbians.
Governments aren't measuring only GDP, aren't measuring only how much money they're spending, but measure how that money is actually accomplishing the outcomes that government should be striving for.
The party's already said it would create healthcare hubs in each riding, cover psychologist visits under MSP, prevent rents from increasing between tenancies, provide free transit, keep the carbon tax, but with bigger rebates. Today it said it would spend $2 billion to combat poverty, increase taxes on corporations with more than $1 billion annual profits, people earning more than $350,000 a year, and homes worth more than $3 million.
When people in our communities are suffering, we also suffer.
Despite an enthusiastic crowd, the same support wasn't found for running a full slate of candidates, unlike the Conservatives and NDP, both enlisting a full 93 candidates. The Greens only have 69.
It is discouraging, and it is something that we have to make sure that we are addressing. We are strengthened in that for the next election.
Not a surprise. In most ridings across the province, the Greens are not going to win. They are victims of our single-member plurality or first-past-the-post electoral system.
Furstenau says she thinks positive policies, not politics, should be prioritized, adding she'd work with either the Conservatives or NDP if there's a minority government. But the deal breaker?
That is the well-being framework. I need to have a government that actually measures how it's spending its money and what it's doing in terms of the outcomes.
The other two party leaders also recently released new planks of their platforms. David Eby was in the Kootenays, while John Rustad was in Sea to Sky country. As Penny Daflos reports this time, while the policies are important, so is face-to-face interaction with the voters.
Pounding the pavement is a big part of campaigning, from greeting volunteers to the local mayor.
Thanks for the personal welcome.
While listening to voters' concerns.
We can't be making the climate crisis worse.
And promising policies that speak to them. From rural healthcare patients.
We're including mileage coverage in our expanded travel to make sure that if you have to drive for care, that you're covered.
To expanding protected sick leave for serious illnesses from 8 days to 27 weeks.
If you're facing a cancer diagnosis, the last thing you need to worry about is whether or not your job will be there after you go through surgery or treatment.
Talking points EB and his candidates are taking to the campaign trail. Main streeting is incredibly important to political campaigns because it's not just about those candidates pitching their policies to voters, it's also about making that face-to-face connection. Conservative leader John Rustad knows just how important that is, connecting with supporters in Chilliwack over the long weekend, while not losing sight of making his priorities clear to voters.
Eliminating the mandates for things like electric vehicles and heat pumps is something that we will be doing in the province. We need to make sure that as part of this, like I say, we need to have this honest conversation with people in British Columbia. What is our power mix going to be? Should we be using nuclear power in British Columbia?
Sonia Furstenau is using her grassroots network to make those same connections. It can mean a lot of travel time, but the leaders clearly see it as worth the investment.
Nice to meet you.
Penny Dufflaw, CTV News, Grand Forks.
A father in Kelowna is furious after his 13-year-old daughter was brutally beaten by dozens of teens on a popular beach. He's calling for criminal charges in the devastating attack that was caught on video by multiple bystanders, and a warning, the video is very disturbing and not suitable for all viewers. CTV's Yasmin Gandam has our story.
A disturbing video caught on camera on Gyro Beach in Kelowna shows a 13-year-old girl being swarmed and beaten to the point of unconsciousness.
And then I watched 2 minutes of my daughter getting near beat to death by 20 or 30 kids who just decided that it was better for them to record it and to laugh at her, steal her phone so she couldn't call for help anymore, and then throw it back on her limp body when they were done beating her.
Her dad says he had no words seeing the video and watching his daughter lying on the ground, motionless.
She's just 13 years old. It was her first year in high school this year. She hadn't even been to school with most of these kids.
He says his daughter was lured to the beach by a friend and attacked at around 8:30 Friday night, some kicking dirt onto her while others cheered along.
I don't know what my daughter did to deserve this. I don't know what anybody could do to deserve this. It's terrible to watch. I hope people watch it and they can't believe it.
She tried to get away but couldn't. She's currently suffering with bruised ribs and a concussion, but her father is worried she may never feel safe again.
Luckily for her, she's tough. Mentally, she started therapy, and I don't know how long that's going to ever take for her to trust or want to be outside again.
In a statement to CTV News, Kelowna RCMP said they responded to several incidents of criminal offenses by youth, most notably the report of a violent attack on a female youth. Their investigation remains ongoing, and Mounties believe there were other incidents over the weekend that went unreported. They're advising anyone to come forward. For Donovan, he hopes justice is served, so no child has to experience what his daughter has.
How many messages do we need to send that say this also happened to my daughter before something gets done? It's ridiculous.
Yasmin Gantam, CTV News, Vancouver.
Turning to tonight's weather, the North Coast will be home to a chance of showers at a low of 9 degrees. The Terrace-Kitimat area should see periods of rain with their low down at 4 degrees. And the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District will instead have clearing conditions as their low drops to -4 degrees. On the North Coast, the week for them contains nothing but rain as their high shifts from 10 to 13 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, their upcoming week will also see essentially just rain and nothing else, while the high bounces between 9 and 12 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, the next week or so may get a little sun to start, but clouds and rain after that as the high jumps from 11 to 13 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is bridge maintenance, other maintenance, utility work, construction work, shoulder maintenance, line painting, and paving operations. Highway 37 has some utility work and roadside brushing. 37A has more maintenance, and there is some construction work, maintenance, flooding, and other bridge maintenance on the Nishka Highway. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, the devastating conflict in the Middle East continued with even more attacks. Welcome back. A major attack from Iran saw the launching of 181 ballistic missiles towards populated Israeli cities. Israel called it a serious assault and warns of serious consequences. CTV's Heather Wright reports.
Sirens wail over Tel Aviv as a barrage of missiles rains down on Israel. While most were intercepted by Israel's air defense systems, some got through the Iron Dome, causing damage. But the IDF says there has so far been no reports of serious injuries. The salvo fired today, retaliation, according to Iran's Revolutionary Guard, for the killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, and Abbas Nilfarushin, an Iranian general who was killed in the strike that took out Nasrallah. Iran's attack comes on the same day Israel launched a ground invasion into Lebanon, an incursion the IDF says will be, quote, limited.
I know everybody's been saying we are trying to avoid a regional war, but I think when Israel's bombing the Houthis in Yemen and targets in Syria and invading southern Lebanon, I think we have to just accept that this has already expanded to more of a regional conflict.
In Lebanon, people in the south are again being told to leave their homes. An estimated 1 million people are now displaced in a country with limited resources to respond to the crisis.
There is huge pressure inside of Lebanon right now, politically, humanitarian-wise, and with all the other groups that are in there, it's going to be a destabilizing effect for some time.
For months, Global Affairs Canada has urged Canadians in Lebanon to leave. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly says 200 were able to get out over the weekend, with another flight scheduled to leave today.
If you are offered a seat, please take it. And it is time to leave Lebanon now.
And in a separate incident, multiple people were killed in an apparent terror attack in Jaffa, just south of Tel Aviv. Officials say the two shooters were killed by police.
Israeli officials have given people the all clear to leave shelters. And so the big question now is, how will Israel respond to this attack? A military spokesman said there would be, quote, consequences, and a plan for retaliation is already in place. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
If elected, the NDP is pledging to fund an expansion of a rapid bus line on the North Shore, but the BC Conservatives argued that it's already part of TransLake's plans. The region's mayors say without a major commitment from whoever wins, transit services could face drastic cuts. CTV's Shannon Patterson has that story.
The R2 rapid bus line connects Park Royal in West Vancouver to Lonsdale Quay and Phibbs Exchange, a busy North Vancouver bus loop near the Second Narrows Bridge. On Tuesday, the NDP pledged to fund a long-talked-about expansion of that line to Metrotown.
It is capable of achieving the capacity, the speed, the reliability, and the efficiency of a light rail transit system, but it is also a system that we are able to deliver in a fraction of the time for a fraction of the cost.
I wish this was a new and exciting announcement that we'll be getting something new to the North Shore, but unfortunately, this is just old wine in a new bottle right now.
The BC Conservatives say the NDP is repackaging an existing project as a campaign announcement.
Signs have been up for several months talking about the next phase of the expansion from Phibbs Exchange to Metrotown.
But the NDP says the entire line will be upgraded and funding for the final phase had not been secured by TransLink.
This is effectively a $500 million commitment to rapid transit on the North Shore.
So today's announcement by the NDP is a welcome announcement, but as we've said, it's not going to get us out of the structural deficit that TransLink faces.
That annual deficit, $600 million. Without a long-term funding commitment, the Mayor's Council is warning widespread service cuts could happen by next year.
We need to solve that problem. So we want to know from each party what they're bringing to the table.
The BC Conservatives say their transit plan will fund existing projects and ensure current service levels can be maintained.
It is going to be initially a 2-year stopgap funding, just to make sure that service is not cut and nobody's impacted immediately. In the meantime, we have also asked for an audit, an accountability audit, to understand how and why we actually got into the situation.
The NDP insists it's the better choice for transit riders, and if elected, construction will begin on the final phase of the R2 rapid bus line to Metrotown in 2025. Shannon Patterson, CTV News, North Vancouver.
And now we turn our attention to the stock markets. The Canadian dollar is up 7/100ths of a cent. The price of gold is down $20.60. Oil is up 28 cents. Natural gas is down 1 cent. Aluminum is up $22.50. In Toronto, the TSX is down 32.44 points. The Venture Index is up 3.08. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 39.55. And Nasdaq is up 14.76. Still ahead is the journey of a man determined to see his daughter's special day. Welcome back. Now to one father's harrowing journey to make sure that he could walk his daughter down the aisle at her wedding. It followed a powerful hurricane that swept through parts of the United States. ABC's Laura Spencer reports.
For David Jones, what would normally be a 2-hour drive from South Carolina to Tennessee to get to his daughter's wedding turned into a 12-hour odyssey after Hurricane Helene made the roads impassable.
I just went to the back of my car and grabbed my backpack and off I went, on foot.
Using his camera phone flashlight, Jones began to walk the rest of the way. A trek, he says, took 5 hours through downed trees and debris.
I sunk down in the mud. It was like quicksand, right down to my knees, trapped, can't move, and then slowly move each leg until I can get back up to more solid ground.
Along the way, he did receive some help, one trooper driving him a little closer.
He said, "Sir, are you the one that's trying to get to your daughter's wedding?"
Finally, arriving home Saturday morning after walking through the night, Jones had just enough time to shower and head to the church to walk his daughter down the aisle.
And I had no idea he walked me down the aisle. It was until the reception that he told the story of what he had gone through. It was an emotional roller coaster for me because I love my dad very much.
That's all of our news for now. From all of us here at CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.